The microphone screeched with feedback. 300 people went quiet at once. My son-in-law raised one hand for silence, looked straight at me in the front row, and told the whole town I couldn't be trusted to run my own store anymore. He smiled when he said it. My hands didn't shake. I reached into my jacket pocket and closed my fingers around a folder he had no idea I was carrying. But let me take you back to where this started. Tell me before. Who are you, and where are you watching from? And please like and subscribe. My name is Frank Doyle. I'm 63 years old, and for 38 years I've run a hardware store on Tuscarawas Street in Canton, Ohio. The same store my father opened after he came home from Korea with nothing but a tool belt and a stubborn streak. I know how to fix a leaky faucet, price a bag of 10-penny nails, and remember every regular's name and their dog's name too. My wife Margaret passed 4 years ago, so that store and my daughter Emily are the only two things in this world I built and never once thought I'd lose. When Emily married a man named Dale Whitfield, I gave him a job behind the counter, then a title, then a piece of the business. I trusted him with the one thing I had left besides my own daughter. That trust is exactly what he was counting on. It started with a phone call in October. Our lumber supplier, a man named Kurt I'd known for 20 years, called asking why we were 60 days behind on a bill. I told him that was impossible. Dale handled the books now, and Dale never missed a payment. Kurt went quiet for a second. "Frank," he said, "I've sent 3 notices to your email." I had never gotten a single one. That night I didn't say anything to Emily. I told myself it was a mix-up. But I started noticing things I used to just walk past. Invoices I didn't recognize, a new company name on a delivery slip, Dale taking phone calls out in the parking lot instead of the office. I called my old friend Walt, who's run the branch of First National on Cleveland Avenue since before Emily was born. I asked him, quiet, like I was asking about a fishing spot, if he'd take a look at something for me. 2 days later, I sat across his desk and he slid a paper toward me without a word. Doyle's Hardware had taken out 2 loans that year, both backed by the store building itself. My signature was at the bottom of both. I never signed those papers. What I remembered was Dale handing me a stack of routine renewal forms one busy Saturday, asking me to initial the bottom of each page while I was ringing up paint for a line of customers. I used to think betrayal from your own family came in loud, a slammed door, a raised voice. I was wrong. It doesn't knock, and it doesn't yell. It comes in through the paperwork, quiet as a mouse, and by the time you finally hear it, it's already rearranged the whole house. For a few days I actually hoped I was wrong. I wanted to be the paranoid old man who doubted a good man for no reason. That would have been easier to live with than what I actually found. Wrong. It doesn't knock, and it doesn't yell. It comes in through the paperwork, quiet as a mouse, and by the time you finally hear it, it's already rearranged the whole house. For a few days I actually hoped I was wrong. I wanted to be the paranoid old man who doubted a good man for no reason. That would have been easier to live with than what I actually found. The last piece came from Emily, not from me. She showed up at my house on a Tuesday night, still in her work clothes, and told me Dale had been distant for weeks. Late nights he wouldn't explain. Calls he took in the garage with the door shut. That morning she'd found a receipt in his jacket for a storage unit in Columbus, 2 hours away, a city we had no family in, and no reason to be renting anything in. I didn't tell her yet what Walt had shown me. I just held her hand and said we'd figure it out together. But inside, something in me had gone still and cold, the way a room goes quiet right before a storm hits. 2 weeks later, Dale announced he'd be speaking at the store's 50th anniversary celebration, the kind of event my father would have been proud to see covered in the local paper. He told me, smiling, that he had an announcement about the future of the business. He had no idea that by then, Walt, a lawyer named Sam Petrocelli I'd known since high school, and my own daughter already knew exactly what future he was planning. Here's what we found. Dale hadn't just forged loan documents. He'd opened a separate company in his name only, and spent over a year quietly moving money from the store into it, a little at a time, small enough that I'd never notice, big enough to add up to almost $200,000. The storage unit in Columbus wasn't storage. It was a furnished apartment, leased under his company's name. Emily learned later he hadn't been renting it alone. The announcement he'd planned for the anniversary wasn't about growth, it was about me. He was going to stand in front of the whole town and say that, for my own good, I'd be stepping back for health reasons, twisting one routine visit to my eye doctor into something that sounded like I was losing my mind. Once I was out on paper, his would be the only name left on the deed. He planned to sell the building within the month and be gone before Canton knew what happened. He wasn't trying to take my store from me. He was trying to erase me from it, in public, with a smile, using my own daughter's trust to do it. The day of the anniversary, 300 people stood in that same parking lot under the banner with my father's name on it. The microphone screeched when Dale tapped it. He raised his hand for silence and got it. He talked about new leadership and taking care of Frank, in a voice that had half the crowd feeling sorry for me before I'd said a single word. I didn't yell. I didn't wave papers in his face in front of the whole town. I reached into my jacket pocket, pulled out that folder, and set it down calmly on the podium beside him. Not fraud reports, not bank statements, just one signed page. The deed to Doyle's hardware, transferred that morning to my daughter, Emily Doyle, full owner. Her name would be going up on the sign that week. Dale's smile disappeared before he understood why. What happened to him after that didn't happen on that stage, and it didn't need an audience. The loans were reported. The company he'd hidden the money in got investigated. The woman in Columbus left once she found out the money was gone and the questions were starting. Emily filed for divorce 2 months later. Walt tells me Dale works nights at a warehouse outside Columbus now, alone, in an apartment a fraction the size of the one he thought he'd earned. I take no pleasure in that. I only feel the kind of quiet that comes after a storm finally passes. I didn't lose my store that October. I found out exactly who was standing beside me the whole time. If someone in your own family tried to quietly erase you from the thing you spent your life building, would you have seen it coming?